Hey there, and welcome back to our coping skills class. I'm your host, Tom, and today we are going to be talking about unhelpful thinking habits. Now, we all do these things, um, but these are things that you might notice that you are doing more frequently or that it's becoming a problem because this is happening too frequently. So I'm going to take you through what would be kind of the common 12 uh, unhelpful thinking habits that you may be doing. And then we're going to put a link down below so that you have that. I would suggest that you download a worksheet of this. So it'll have all the things that we're going to be talking about today. So it'll have the 12 unhelpful thinking habits. And what I want you to do is I want you to check off what ones you think that you are using quite frequently as we're going. And now don't worry about it if you feel like you're like, wow, I'm checking off a lot of these. That's very common if you have anxiety or low mood. That's why they're on this list is because they're exceptionally common. So what we're going to start with is mental filter. And with a mental filter, we only notice what we want to. That happens a lot with the internet these days, where we have a belief or a feeling, and we type things down, and we constantly look for those things. And then what sometimes makes it worse is the algorithms that they use for the search engines are going to filter even greater to that. So by design, a lot of people are actually now having more of a mental filter, not even just because of their own mind, but also because the search engines are getting used to what you're looking for, or if you're on different social media platforms, then those algorithms will start to create more things or find more things that you are searching out. And so this one is a very prevalent one in today's technology society. The second one is mind reading, assuming that we know what others are thinking. And so this can be fairly common as well. So we might be you walk by Joe, your buddy Joe, you waved hi, and he doesn't say hi or anything. He just keeps walking, and you might be making some assumptions about what happened there. Whereas there might be a completely legit reason, and your buddy didn't know that you were even there. They were kind of wrapped up in their own mind. A next one would be prediction, believing we know what will happen in the future. This is exceptionally common with anxiety, and that's kind of what anxiety is designed for, is to try and get us to look at a number of possible reasons or things that can be going wrong. So anxiety by its very design lends to prediction, because we're trying to figure out what the worst case scenarios are, or what all the potential catastrophic events might be with this thing that you're worried about, so that you can kind of deal with it. Now that with anxiety, it kind of takes it to an nth degree, and so what we want to do is we want to keep that in check. The next is compare and despair. So we only see the good in others and the negatives in ourselves. And again, with the world of social media, that we start to see a lot more. So it's very hard with social media because because people don't usually post the bad things that are happening to themselves unless they're making a kind of that's what they're doing as part of their channel, is that they want you to see the bad things, and that's part of what draws people there. But for the most part, people post like the absolute best possible scenario, and it's even more so now with filters. And so a lot of people will feel really bad about themselves because they'll see all this good online of, like, look at all these people and look at all these cars that these people have, or look at all this stuff that they've done, or these trips that they've taken, and what am I doing? So we want to try and keep these in check. So one of the next ones would be critical self. So putting ourselves down and blaming ourselves for things that aren't totally our fault. So this happens a lot in the workplace. It happens a lot with parenthood, where we have these kind of unrealistic expectations of ourselves about what we should be doing or what we can be doing. and then we put ourselves down, or you take on more responsibility for something that went wrong than what you're actually responsible for. Shoulds and musts is kind of similar, and this again, parenthood and work. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and a lot of times that stems from unrealistic expectations, which we'll go through in another class. But for now, just being aware of the shoulds and musts, well, I should do this. If I'm a parent, I should be doing this, or I must be doing this. Or if you're at work, it's like I should be this, or I should have made this promotion by this time. These are very common in terms of thought processes. Judgments. Now humans by their very nature are quite judgmental. So this one is almost everybody usually checks off is that judgments can be a thing. Making evaluations about ourselves, others, or the world rather than describing what is actually happening. And so our brain tries to compartmentalize things so that it's easier to interpret things because there's a lot of information out there, and our brains want to try and make things more efficient. And so it does that by lumping things into things that are similar. And so judgments can be a very common technique that happens again with anxiety. Judgments have a tendency to become more embellished because we want to justify why we're feeling the way that we're feeling, and we'll look for things that will maybe skew, that judgment. So for emotional reasoning, this one can be a bit tricky because it's like, you might wake up in a bad mood or you might feel anxious, so you must be in danger. And then you start looking for things to validate that. So, so a lot of people that have described it would be like, yeah, I woke up, I had a bad dream, and this happened, and I know the dream wasn't real, but now this is how I started my day, and then I spilled my coffee, and then this happened, and then this happened. So people will focus on the negatives to reinforce that emotion, and it can compound as the day goes on. And so, so if you're somebody that's very reactive emotionally in the morning, this will be a one to be very conscious about. Because this is the one that I see a lot of when people are very emotional based, and literally how they wake up will dictate how the day is going to go. And so be conscious of do you need to feel that way? So if you wake up in a bad mood, do you need to feel that way? Mountains and molehills. So this is an exaggeration of the risk of danger or of negatives of a situation. So this is where things just get blown right out of proportion. Oftentimes what this one is kind of lumped in with is somebody, this is a similar situation to something happened. So partner didn't take out the garbage and it's like the 30th time that this has happened. And so you treat it as if it's like now you're at a higher state of emotion, because you're not just treating it about this one incident, which, somebody doesn't take out the garbage right when you want to. In the grand scheme of things is actually fairly low, but you're not dealing with it at that. You're dealing with this. These are the 30 things that you haven't done, and this is how it happens all the time. And so you respond differently. And so mountains and molehills can oftentimes be related to similar tasks or things that haven't been done or have been done to you, and that you're reacting at that exaggerated level of threat. Catastrophizing is a very common one. So imagining and believing in the worst case scenario or worst possible scenario. And that is anxiety in a nutshell. So most people who have an anxiety disorder or high anxiety have a tendency to catastrophize. And again, it's about trying to look at the worst possible scenarios or all the worst possible scenarios, because in your mind is trying to figure out, how do we resolve this? Like, I'm in danger. What are the dangers? What do I need to get done? And it's trying to do that in like 5 seconds or less. And so catastrophizing is a very big go-to for people who have long-term anxiety. And so it's something to be definitely aware of if you're doing this. So black and white thinking, it's either right or wrong, good or bad. There's no middle ground. Again, it kind of goes back to even the internet, where algorithms kind of push you into those areas. And so So if you have a certain viewpoint, then an algorithm might continue to bring up other videos or other ideas that are similar to that. And so I find with online content especially, I see more and more people struggling with black and white thinking. So most people, if they most things aren't black and white. Most things are somewhere in the middle. And so trying to keep that in mind when you're maybe talking with somebody about, what's the middle ground on this? So if you're literally on one end of the spectrum and they're on the other, is there a middle ground, or does this conversation even have to happen? Because if you're just trying to convince the other person, then you're not really listening, and it's not really a conversation. The last one is memories. And so current situations bring up upsetting memories, leading to us to believe that the danger is here and now rather than the past. This makes us feeling more intensely now. Now you can see that some of these kind of blur a little bit or overlap. And so memories, again, if we take it back to like somebody hadn't taken out the garbage and it's the 30th time that it happened, um, those get lumped in with how you're feeling now. On an extreme end of how to feel about something that happened now is like, so if say somebody is a soldier had PTSD, or you had an EMT that experienced a really horrible situation, and there was a sound that was associated with the accident that they had to attend to. Um, and then they hear that again, and it could trigger as if something was coming there, and that's on the extreme end. That's a PTSD symptom, is just those flashbacks. Most people will not experience that level of intensity, but that would be the nth degree of memories as an unhelpful thinking habit. So those are the top 12, or the most common of the grounding, or pardon me, of the unhelpful thinking habits. So what you want to do is you want to just be, right now, what I want you to do is I want you to just be aware of those. So the ones that you checked off, what I want you to do is I want you to, over the next 7 days, do a little bit of a log at the end of the day, and like, how many times did I use these techniques? Because sometimes the ones we think we're using the most aren't actually the ones that we're using. And sometimes it's exactly how you're thinking, but having an awareness of how often you're using it uh, will really help to build up some self-awareness. And if you're aware of something, now you can actually manage it or deal with it. Whereas if you don't know why you're doing things, it can be much harder to actually kind of curtail the anxiety symptoms or the low mood symptoms. So this is really about being more self-aware. It's not about, beating yourself up over this. It's like, oh man, I thought, you know, I had like 32 memories of, that were, why can't I stop leaving? Why can't I leave the past in the past? So don't worry about that. Like, that's not what this is about. This is about building awareness, and so that you can catch and be like, oh yeah, yeah, no, I'm actually bringing that up again, and that actually has nothing to do with this current situation. Or, say catastrophizing. Well, is it really that bad? Like, let's take a bigger look at this, and we're going to be breaking down some strategies on how you can break down your current situation in upcoming episodes. So for now, this is just a self-awareness exercise. So for the next 7 days, I want you to just be aware, log it each day, and if you're using them every day, that's okay. And if you're not using any of them, that's okay too. So good luck with the assignment, and we'll see you in the next session.